Okay, hello. We're ready to begin in a few minutes. Some people checking in already. Greetings. Some more people coming in. Somebody from Tehran. I always like to see the international group we get here sometimes. I think we're going to not have any trouble with the internet today. I got a good connection. Yeah, here's your shadow. Nepal. We got Portugal, Iran, Nepal. Hey, less than a minute to go. Started. Okay. Okay. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So we're up to the 9th paramita today, which is metta, loving kindness, which of course is also one of the 4 brahma-viharas. Metta is usually translated loving kindness. I'm not entirely happy with that translation. The root of the word comes from the same root as the Pali word for friend, and I think it's better understood as a feeling of benevolence. The traditional aspiration associated with this state is, may all beings be well and happy. So it's a well-wishing, a sense of benevolence. May beings be happy, may they be free from ill will, may they be enjoy their existence. It's not to be confused with loving or even liking in the ordinary sense of the word. Metta, to be as spiritually effective, has to be universal. You can't make exceptions, and then it's not really metta. I heard one fellow say once he could have metta for all beings except mosquitoes. That's not really true metta. Metta is a divine abiding of brahma-vihara, which are also called the boundless states. And that means that the metta is extended to all beings whatsoever. So this definitely doesn't include the idea of approving of a being's behavior or bearing, or even liking them or wanting to be hanging around with them, but just may they be happy. A good example is a paramita chant that we used to do in the jungle in Thailand, that we nicknamed it, the Western monks, we nicknamed it the creepy crawly chant. And it's a chant that paritas are chants that provide protection. This is for protection against snakes and scorpions and such. And the essence of the chant is, I extend metta to all beings, whether they have 4 legs or 2 legs or 6 legs or 8 legs or many legs or no legs, to spiders, scorpions, snakes, and all such beings there may be. May they be well and happy, but may they stay far away from me. So when you have metta for the scorpion, it does not mean that you want to take him into your sleeping bag and cuddle with him. It means, may you enjoy your scorpion existence over there and leave me alone. So we should be able to extend metta to, in those terms, to all beings of all kinds and descriptions, including evildoers, wrongdoers, people who have hurt us, people who threaten us. We still should have metta for them. Even though we don't want to be around them, that doesn't contradict the metta. If metta is partial affection, then that's a corruption of metta. It's not the true extension of this this state of mind. It's called a brahma-vihara because it's a dwelling place of the Brahmas, meaning that this is a state, a divine state of mind. It surpasses the ordinary human state. Another thing that's very important and that can be overlooked is that though we extend metta to all beings without exception, the very first beginning of metta must be to have metta towards yourself. May I be well and happy. May all good things be for me. If you don't have true metta for yourself, then it's impossible to extend it to anyone else. It doesn't work. It's fake. But if you have this genuine benevolence for yourself, it then becomes impossible for you to hold it because it's too powerful a state to be confined to one being. If you truly have benevolence for yourself, then it'll naturally extend outwards, and you'll be having benevolence to other beings. It's the natural opposite. Metta is the natural opposite of ill will. And in that context, it's also called adosa, not ill will. And we find this as a peculiarity of the Pali, and particularly in Abhidhamma usage, that a lot of the positive states of mind are expressed with negative nouns. A is the Pali prefix meaning not, like in English we would maybe have un. So adosa is not ill will. And wisdom is sometimes called amoha, not delusion. The reason for that is not just a linguistic quirk, I think. I think it's because these positive states are really the more natural states. And when they're not blocked by negativity, then they naturally occur. That what holds the mind back in all circumstances is negative states of mind. They block the natural unfoldment of these virtues. So metta is a more natural state of mind than ill will. So there are different ways of developing metta as a meditation, and there's lots of variations. And if you investigate, you'll find many different meditation instructions for doing metta. But they generally, with all the variations, they generally fall into a couple of categories. One is metta by universal pervasion. That is, in the mature form of the meditation, it's the extension of the radiation of metta to the whole universe. And the way to work with this is to begin, as always, with yourself. May I be well and happy. And stay with that thought, that feeling, until it's really well established. Generally, it's good. It works well to center your awareness in the heart chakra, in the middle of the chest, and watch the breath there for a few breaths, and then try to arouse this feeling. May I be well and happy. And then begin extending it outwards in increasing circles. It could begin with other beings in the room if you're meditating in a group, or even just if you're alone, other beings. You're never really alone. There's going to be insects, and also don't forget invisible beings like devas and petas, and extend it outwards to the local area, the neighborhood, or gradually outwards to the town and the province and the continent, the planet, and then out into space in 10 directions of space. And the thing is to continually include all beings of all kinds. So you can use, this is a kind of meditation where you use your imagination and your visualization, and you think of the animals, the people, the fish, the birds, the invisible beings. And then when you're radiating into space, it's unknown beings, countless, vast, innumerable. The number of worlds are unknown. The number of beings are vast, infinite, really. And different, and basically whatever really works for you is good. I think the thing to remember is that the essential sign of this meditation is the feeling of metta. It's a mental state. And everything else that we use in our meditation is an aid or a prop. So some people rely strongly on a verbal recitation. Well, may all beings be well and happy. May they be free of enmity. May they be free of strife. May they continue to enjoy a happy life. Something like that. Just keep repeating that. Other people, and I think I do this more often when I'm practicing metta, is to use a kind of visualization, to imagine, visualize rays coming out from your heart chakra, like rose-colored rays going in all directions and bathing beings with metta and filling the whole universe eventually from the center, your heart center. The other form of meditation on metta is to use very much more focused and directed towards individuals. And you go through a traditional list. You begin again with yourself, to make sure it's well established there, and then may my parents be well and happy, if they're still alive. If they're not, you skip that step. Then someone you recognize as a teacher, may he or she be well and happy. Then someone who is a dear friend. Then a neutral person, like someone you don't have strong feelings about either way, but you can recognize their face. And then the enemy, someone who's given you a hard time or someone you have difficulty with. And you go through the list to each individual. And again, the exact method varies with people, depending largely on your skill at visualization. Some people just conjure up the face of the person. Others imagine the person sitting in the room in front of them. If you're really weak at visualization, just simply thinking of them using the name. So this list goes from beings that it should be easy to have loving kindness for towards the ones that are more problematic and ends with a very difficult one. And the perfection of this meditation is when the feeling aroused is the same for all the classes of beings, that all beings are in whichever category, friend, neutral, or enemy, are all felt as having the same degree of metta extended towards them. And that's called breaking down the barriers. And this is something that can take a while to work towards. There's also a couple of cautions with this meditation. One is not to include in the list anyone who's dead. And the reason for this is because if the dead person is in the Peta realm, when you extend metta towards them, they can be attracted to that and hang around, and it doesn't help them. It kind of keeps them in that ghostly state of existence. The proper practice to aid those in the Peta realm is to make merit and offer the merit to them, but not to extend metta to the dead. The other category to avoid is any individual who is of age and gender that might cause you to feel sexual desire, because the metta can easily flip into sexual lust if you're not careful. So you avoid those persons in the metta extended towards individuals. But we do extend, when we extend it outwards by universal pervasion, we include all beings, because we're not so focused on an individual that this is not really an issue. I have to relate a kind of funny story here that I was at a Buddhist conference many years ago, and one of the monks who was arriving at this conference had been waiting at the airport when the airport police came around with their sniffer dogs, these sniffer drugs and explosives. And he was sitting on a bench waiting for his flight, practicing to pass the time. He was practicing metta meditation, and he was extending it to individuals that he saw in the airport. And he included the dog. He extended metta towards the dog, and that affected the dog, who came over and nuzzled him. So, of course, a drug-sniffing dog paying attention to you, that's trouble, right? So they took him into the back room, and, he had to be searched and questioned and so on. So in modern times, we can include a third category. You don't extend metta to the dead, to anyone who might arouse sexual desire, and also not to dope-sniffing dogs. So these two different modes of meditation, they have specific effects. If you want to really develop your samadhi and you want to take this meditation to jhana, then you're best to use the individual focus. But the meditation by universal pervasion, although it's not as deeply focused, it's a very powerful cleansing of the mind, of blasting through negativity and dark feelings. It's a very good way of raising the spirits and brightening the mind. I'll say another few words about that method of universal pervasion. There's a couple of things you can do with it. If you are extending metta to the infinity of space, you can hold that for as long as you want and make that the meditation, or you can actually transition from that and go on to meditation on the formless abidings. Your metta is filling universal space, then you just cease to pay attention to metta and pay attention to universal space, infinite space, and then you're into the first formless abiding. So there we have an option of what you can do at the end of at the maturation stage of the metta. And if you practice metta meditation regularly, one of the things that many people notice is uh, is that other people begin to relate to you differently. You begin to get more kindness and less hostility coming towards you. Even people that were previously kind of grouchy or difficult begin to soften in their relations with you. And it's there are many stories of monks in the jungle who used metta to protect themselves when they were attacked by wild animals, and the animal is disarmed and can't carry through with the attack and goes away. And also even hostile people. So the perfection of metta, if it's really perfect, it's a great protection, even in a mundane sense. It's a protection of your life and your body. And it's certainly internally, it diminishes your own anger and irritation and ill will, and it makes you into a better, more agreeable person in general. And this is a specific antidote to anger. If you're an anger type, if you're angry and irritable, you need to do metta meditation. Now, this is something I found a bit of a difficulty with, is trying to convince people of that people who are naturally anger types, they have often have a strong resistance to doing metta. People who are naturally loving and kind, they enjoy doing metta. They take to it. They love it, but they don't really need it so much. I mean, it doesn't do them any harm. It's still a very beneficial practice. But the people who really need it, they often have a strong resistance to taking it up. And I think part of that is the translation of metta as loving kindness to a kind of hard person that sounds sort of soft and soppy, loving kindness. And it's not really accurate anyway. I would rather call it benevolence or goodwill, or just leave it untranslated as metta. It's a very specific state of mind. It's not, it's as is we find in all these Pali terms, if you look into the sources, they're clearly defined. And often the English names are a bit misleading because English is a fuzzier language, particularly when we come to mental states and spiritual qualities. The English words are often very much more loose and subject to different interpretations. You think of metta as a unique state of mind. It's not exactly love or kindness or even benevolence. It's a unique state of mind. It's a wishing of goodwill. May beings be well and happy. So its relation to the other brahma-viharas, getting off the metta as a paramita, and considering metta in the other context as brahma-vihara. The other ones are karuna, mudita, and upekkha. And the first three, to use the traditional translations, loving kindness, compassion, and sympathetic joy, are all variations on a theme. Loving kindness or metta is the most general. May beings be well and happy. Karuna focuses on the suffering aspect of beings and wishes may beings be released from their suffering. And it's not exactly the same as the English word compassion. because the English word compassion, it comes from a Latin root. It means to suffer with. And karuna shouldn't make you feel suffering. It makes no sense to add to the suffering in the universe by vicariously suffering. So when you see a being in suffering, in pain, or distress, you should feel karuna. May this being, which is a wish, an aspiration, may this being be released from their suffering. But it doesn't help them or you or anybody to make yourself sad on that account, to bring up vicarious suffering. This is a point that's hard for people to grasp. They think they're being cold-hearted if they don't feel sad when they see beings suffer. But it's really not the correct spiritual quality. And sympathetic joy, mudita, is like the complementary opposite of karuna. It's focusing on the happiness of beings. And may beings continue to enjoy whatever happiness they have attained. So most beings in the universe have a mixture of pain and pleasure. And with karuna, we focus on the pain and wish it to be reduced. And with mudita, we focus on the happiness and wish it be preserved. And this includes mundane, ordinary happiness. The example given in the Visuddhimagga, speaking about mudita, is you see a person riding on a richly adorned elephant, and you feel happiness, sympathetic happiness. May they continue to enjoy their good fortune. It's a completely worldly thing to be wealthy enough to afford an adorned elephant. Upekkha is, and that's going to be also the topic for the final paramita. But upekkha is special case. It's not developed the same way as the others, and it transcends the others. It's kind of like the graduate school of brahma-viharas. So I won't say too much more about that at this time. So metta as a parami is like all the paramis. It's a spiritual virtue or value that is maintained, that continues forward and can carry on from lifetime to lifetime. And every time you develop this kindness and this benevolence, you're strengthening that parami. And when you give way to ill will, anger, irritation, you're weakening it. And someone who is really strong in the metta parami, they're very joyous. They're happy people, and their life is easier. Their life is quite easy because they radiate that metta, and other beings respond to it. And it's definitely a mistake to think of it as a kind of a weak state of mind. It's a very strong, powerful state of mind. If you're able to maintain metta in the face of abusive or dangerous persons, then it's a very powerful state that you've developed. And it takes integrity and courage. So I think I'll stop there, and we're see if there's any questions in the chat. I see there's all kinds of chat going on there. Don't really know. Can I scroll it back? Oh yeah, there's a scroll bar. I don't know. Don't know how to work through all this. Okay, maybe we'll just kind of start fresh. If you have a question, put, because a lot of this seems to be discussion back and forth. If you have a question, just enter it into the chat now. I am not a Mahayana smuggler, but could you perhaps say a few words on bodhicitta and metta? Thank you, Ajahn. And why not ask just one question or two in the chat? That would be good metta practice. Okay. Yeah, bodhicitta. I'm not really sure what to say. I'm not real clear on what's meant by bodhicitta. I think it's a Mahayana concept, and I think it means the aspiration, the inherent aspiration for Buddhahood that's in beings, and it manifest. One of the ways it could manifest is through, I would say, more karuna than metta. Yeah, I don't really know what much more to say about that. I'm going to get it wrong because I'm not really clear on the Mahayana theory. When we are doing to invisible beings indirectly, we are sending to beings in Peta Ghost realm. How is that different from giving to dead people? What if dead persons in Dewa are human realm? Yeah, if you're doing universal pervasion, you're not focusing on individuals, so it's not as dangerous. You should include all beings when you're doing universal pervasion, but you're doing it in a general way. So you're not focused on, like, the injunction, not you doing it to dead people, is say your mother's dead, you do send metta to your mother. That's recommended not to do that, but just to send metta out generally to all beings in any state of existence is acceptable. And we don't know, and we can't. If the person's in the Dewa realm or has been reborn human, we can't know that. So if we use a dead person specifically, that means someone we knew as a human who's now dead. We don't know where they are, and it's just to be on the safe side, just in case they're in the ghost realm. You avoid that. Can one direct meditating on metta towards vipassana? Not really. They're two different meditations. I don't see how you can do the two. May I ask why you'd say that individual metta practice would lead to more jhana than radiation? Because it's a more focused object. With the radiation, it's a much more diffuse object. So the mind is not, it doesn't really have that ability to go into unity. It doesn't really become unified. Whereas with the individuals in the list, you're focusing on one individual at a time, so the mind is much more has a much more discrete and defined object of meditation. Does metta really help people who are facing repercussions or suffering due to their bad karma ripening? Yeah, it will help in those circumstances. And I would say, there's different. I know that I just was in a discussion with another monk recently who had some disagreement of interpretation, but I'm kind of an Abhidhamma guy, and I think that following the Abhidhamma, I think that every experience we have in life has a karmic component, that nothing arises randomly. So if someone's abusive towards you, one of the causes of that, not the sole cause, that's important, but one of the causes of that is your past karma that somehow this is your karma coming back to you. So since everything is some component of karma, developing metta is bound to help with any situation. In the Theravada tradition, one is characterized by action. In brahma-vihara, one is by strange feelings. Why is this Theravada tradition? I'm not sure that distinction really makes sense. I'm not sure what you mean by Theravada tradition characterized by action. Any kind of meditation is, developing of mental states. It's not really action in the conventional sense. And I don't see why feelings, and I wouldn't call metta a strange feeling. It's a quite natural state of mind. Does thinking about dead people attract them anyhow, regardless of what you think about them? No, I don't think so. I think that they're not just attracted to your thoughts, but by this radiation of metta can be quite powerful, and that could attract the people in the ghost realm if you're not skillful. How that he weakened his resolution, but then overcome his defilement anyway. I don't understand that question. It's not a proper sentence. Does metta manifest at the body level as piti? I refer to what I understand as the physical component of piti, a rush of subtle vibrations through the body. Yeah, metta definitely, it's not the same thing as piti, but definitely associated with piti. Powerful metta will bring up piti for sure. Metta is not always dharma practice. Why do you? Oh, come on! I'm not even going to read the rest of this. This fellow sounds like he just wants to be argumentative. Question not particularly on metta. Where in Pali Suttas or other texts can I find some information on tolerance? Is it on the side of patience or equanimity? Yeah, I would say it's more a patience, a kanti. If you tolerate someone who's disagreeable, that you're exercising kanti. Would you say that universal okayness in regards to other beings' actions are a necessary factor for genuine benevolence? I don't know what you mean, universal okayness. Do you mean universal approval? Then it's not. No, that's not. You don't approve. If someone is being doing something that's clearly immoral and harmful, you don't approve of that, but you still have metta for them as a person. You don't approve of their action, but you wish that they be well and happy, and that would, if they're truly well and happy, they wouldn't do those bad things. So you're seeing that. You should see people who do evil deeds. That's part of their suffering, and they're acting unskillfully. They're making the dark karma for themselves. So they're increasing their own suffering. Diffuse object, but then it's a way to go into formless meditations. Yes, exactly. It's a diffuse object, but then you transfer that, and you can transfer that into the formless abiding. Then you're not doing metta, universal pervasion anymore. You're now doing the formless meditation. But it's a way to transition into that. It's one of the ways to do that. I have a question about last week's topic. If you have time, the Buddha and many Arhat disciples have been mentioned. and left their families to practice dharma. There are other examples of people breaking their determinations and attaining enlightenment, such as Angulimala, bad resolution, and the man who kept ordaining and disrobing, but then attained. Yeah. Yeah, I see your question. It's kind of a difficult one. The Aditana, well, to deal with a kind of easier case first, the Aditana by Angulimala was an unskillful resolution in the first place. So he's actually gaining by disavowing it. But when someone leaves their family, like the Buddha did, you could say that they're breaking in the aditana that they of the layperson by taking on a higher aditana to seek spiritual liberation. So they've transcended from a lower to a higher state. Is there any merit out of chanting the Karani Metta Sutta for the recently passed? No, that's not. Well, I don't know if there's any harm to it either, but that's not the chant that's traditionally done for the departed. There are chants that you can find them in chanting books, funeral chants that are specifically done for the departed. Is dedicating merit from wholesome deeds part of metta? No, it's a different practice. Can metta towards others ease their difficult situation? I think so. It certainly couldn't hurt. I mean, I tend to believe there is an effect on a subtle level that's outside of yourself. But even if there isn't, so what? You still, you're not doing them any harm. Can metta help people committed suicide? No. No, you don't. You don't practice metta towards the dead. That's not appropriate. Suppose a Dhamma practitioner, though not yet fully enlightened, passed away. Do you think they'll find Dhamma again in their subsequent life, arising and resume their practice? Yeah, very likely. They've made good metta, or good merit. They've made good merit by being a practitioner. So it's a good laying a good foundation for the future. There's no guarantees until you attain this state of stream entry. Then that's a guarantee that you'll never take a lower rebirth. So can one be a real no person to others and still have metta for them? What can you clarify that? I don't know what you mean by a no person. Okay, here's a clarification of no person, like saying no to things they want from you as a person. Yeah, you should have metta towards them. That would then classify, that type of person would classify as the fourth category, the enemy or the difficult person, and they should definitely be included. Sometimes we practice metta superficially in the company of abusive people, but once we're out of that relation, it seems we accumulate a lot of ill will without knowing. Yeah, you just have to work on your metta. If you're still feeling ill will, then you haven't deepened the metta enough. And it's something that you deepen over time. It's not something that comes necessarily all at once. Yeah, yeah, that's good. I heard that metta makes one sleep easily. That's something I didn't bring up. There's a list in Visuddhimagga of benefits of metta. I think, if I recall correctly, it's 18 benefits of metta. And one of them is he sleeps easily, he wakes easily, he dreams no evil dreams. Oh, that was three. That's three separate, listed as three separate ones. He becomes dear to human beings. He becomes dear to non-human beings. When he dies easily and peacefully. Can metta have a churning effect on the receiver? Yeah, I would say it's possible. I wouldn't want to be too strong on that, but I think I think it does have an effect outside yourself. How to differentiate the concept of being metta to oneself and concept of non-self anatta? Now, we're dealing with two different levels here. The teachings of not self are the higher teaching that does not recognize the reality of a person. But with the brahma-viharas, we are actually dealing at the level of like sending metta to persons, including yourself. But that doesn't. That's a lower level of truth, but it's still a truth. But if may I be well and happy, that does not. If you understand it correctly, that doesn't imply metaphysical or ontological assertion about the nature of a self. It's just, may this being who's having these experiences, may he be well and happy. I've blocked that Richard Huas of filling up the chat with his argumentative kind of pointless objections. May I ask it again? Yeah, there's a lot of stuff coming through here, and I'm sure I'm missing stuff. You go ahead. Suppose a Dhamma practitioner, though not yet fully enlightened, passes away. Do you think they'll find Dhamma again in subsequent arising and resume their practice? Yeah, I thought I answered that. Or I don't think that's, there's no guarantees until you're a stream winner, but it sets up a strong tendency if you're practicing Dhamma in this life, you're making good merit that will influence your future rebirth. If angry, what is the best way to generate metta? There's again, refer to Visuddhimagga. There's a quite an extensive section on that, how to deal with anger with metta, and that's the short kind of version is to try and look for some quality other than what makes you angry in the person. Like, say you're angry at somebody's really done something wrong or said something abusive, and you really feel angry. Then don't focus on that, but try and think of something good about them. They say Hitler loved his dog. So if you try to, well, he's dead, so you don't want to extend metta to dead people. But you try and find some quality in a person that you can relate to as being good. And the Visuddhimagga says, even if you can't, if it's very difficult, you can't find anything, then imagine that one time they were a little baby. In what way can it be dangerous for people in the Pitta realm to receive metta? The idea is that someone who's become a Pitta, it's really like a imperfect rebirth. It's sort of like an aborted rebirth. They're still hanging on to some fragment of their previous existence and not letting go and not taking a proper rebirth into some other realm of existence. It's sort of an in-between, halfway, ghostly sort of existence, and it's very miserable and difficult to get out of. And if you extend metta towards them, you're attracting them back to the feelings and associations with their previous life, and it's tying them down. It's not helpful to them. This isn't a case where maybe I wasn't specific enough. This is the case where it's someone that you knew as a human. If you randomly, sending metta randomly to Petas, I don't think that doesn't really do anything. But like if a family member died, you extend the metta, they need to move on. They need to get past attachment to their previous life. And if you're sending them metta, they're drawing them back into it, and they can't have it. They can't experience their past life. That's gone. They need to let go and go on to their next existence. Dumb question maybe, but all beings do try to do the right thing for their own happiness. So this would be a bit positive, maybe. Well, no, I don't agree that. I don't think it's always positive to try and maximize your happiness if that's done at the expense of other people's suffering. So that wouldn't be the thing to focus on. I'd imagine that the experience of the higher Petas is not unlike the feeling of nostalgia. Yeah, I think there's something to that. But it's kind of a pathological nostalgia. When we dedicate merit to departed ones, does that not attract them back? No, that's helping to ease their immediate suffering. So it actually helps them to move on. You see, the theory of how that works is that you can't really directly transfer merit, but what you do is you dedicate the merit to someone in the Peta realm, and if they pick up on that and in their realm they rejoice and you're making merit, that is itself good karma. And they're such weak beings, that's really about the only way they can make meritorious karma is to rejoice in the karma made by others. And that gives them immediate benefits, and it helps them to move on into a higher existence. Can we wish for liberation of dead people? Yes. Yeah. That's not the same as male. That's not the same as extending them individual metta. That's wishing that they move on, that they seek a higher plane, they will release altogether. If we get pleasant feeling from meditation, is that merit we can dedicate? Yes. Yeah, you can. It's actually commonly done. May I dedicate the merit of this practice? It's actually a very good thing to do. So we're getting up to an hour, and I think I'll call it quits. Let's see if there's one or two more questions I can answer quickly. I'll do it, and otherwise we'll break out here. Would wishing your enemies gain stream entry be a good way to ease anger? Yeah, we give them a. Yeah, it would also, if they become stream winners, they'd probably be less hostile. Okay, I think we'll take our leave, and we'll see you next week for the last installment on the Paramita series. Then we'll have to start something new.